Hey, design enthusiasts! Welcome to Next in Line Design, a podcast by the World Design Organization's Young Designers Circle. We're all about embracing a new mindset in design, one that's bold, innovative, and impactful. We're here to connect with the next wave of design talent and explore how you can use your creativity to make a real impact. Get ready for fresh ideas and inspiration from young designers around the world who are reshaping the industry. We're here to spark conversations, inspire change, and explore new ideas in design. But remember, these are just our perspectives on one big, evolving field. Please note that the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official views of the World Design Organization or its affiliates. Let's dive in and see what's next in line.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Next in Line Design, a podcast created for and by young designers. My name is Arjit Singh, and I'm a young designer originally from Delhi, India. I studied industrial design at Auburn University in Alabama, and I now work as a UX designer here in Toronto, Canada. Aside from being a designer, I also have been mentoring young designers over the past couple of years, and I've been teaching UX-related courses at George Brown College, again, in Toronto. For over a year, I've also been a part of the World Design Organization as a young designer within the Young Designer Circle, or the YDC, as we call it. And today, I'm excited to be hosting this episode about the evolution of design education in various forms, right? With two folks that have truly made an impact in my life and in other people's lives in various forms. Not only that, I believe that they've also had an impact on each other's lives. Two countrymen united by red hair, or more than red hair, and Auburn Orange divided by a generation gap between teaching. Owen and Ben, welcome to Next in Line Design.
How's it going? Thanks for the invite.
Going really well. I definitely want to give you all a chance because I know both of you are good talkers. So before we move any further, would you please introduce yourselves? A little bit about your design background, perhaps how you got into teaching and why you teach now. And we'll start with Ben.
Okay. Well, my story kind of has stories of Owen within it. So I grew up in Central Alabama, son to a judge and a counselor. And I was always a kid making inventions, but I didn't know what that was. And so I went into college with a major that sounded good. And the third day, I'm like, nah, this is not what I do. But blissfully, like during the orientation process, they're like, hey, there's this thing called industrial design. And I watch them like, there's a thing. Now I have a name to that thing. So I started it, loved it. I met like people who were dysfunctional and kind of looked at the world in a way that I did. So I love the skills, love the process. My junior year teacher was Owen Foster and John McCabe. Now, why someone would let unproven young adults teach even younger, barely adults, I don't know. But it ended up being a great studio, memorable. I loved their process, which is like, it's not so much sage on a stage, but like guide on the side. They'd walk through the process with us, and it was very personal and very intentional. And so from like that time, I'm like, I think I like the idea. I like the way they teach. And so got my degree, really enjoyed it. There became a vacancy at UL Lafayette. So I was applying to jobs, and the first one who reached out after my master's program was a school there. So I went, taught, learned to teach industrial design and taught industrial design, and kind of continued my own little personal practice at the same time in Louisiana. Realized I really loved teaching and loved the relationships and the team building that afforded me. And a couple years later, Owen Foster, John McCabe were over at SCAD. They're like, you want to come teach with us? I'm like, let's do it. So taught over there, got my skills up. The entire time I've always had this philosophy that you can't pour from an empty bucket. So it's been this mixture of I'm teaching, but the more I teach, the more I get curious about something and I start learning it. And so I learn these things and pass it off to students. So it doesn't feel like I'm really detached. It's always me having these side projects, and I learned something. Hey guys, I made a terrible mistake. You want to see what I did? Don't do this thing. And that's become kind of my approach. It's very hands-on. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I won't do myself. And now I'm in, 16th year of teaching industrial design now.
Phenomenal.
God, it makes me feel old, Ben. It makes me feel old.
It is what it is. I mean,
I know. All right. So a little bit about me. So I came from a farm in Alabama. I guess the thing that got me curious was how in the world are we doing it the wrong way all the time? Right. I just looked at the world going, this is just dumb. Why can't you do it this way? Why can't you do it that way? And luckily, I had open parents to let me pursue whatever I wanted to pursue. So went off to college. I picked one, not so much for academics. Let's just say I was that kid. I went far enough away from home where they couldn't just drop in, but I wanted them to visit occasionally. I picked a school, Florida State, that was, known for football and partying. Well, then I came back to Auburn, finished up in landscape architecture. So my first degrees are landscape architecture. Went out, did that for many years, and something wasn't just right. So I was doing the macro, but I wanted to do the micro as well. So I came back to Auburn for a master's in industrial design. I had known a little bit about it before, but never really dabbled in it. As I'm going through my program, I started helping the undergrads with their work till 4 a.m. And then I would do mine from 4 to 8 and turn it in. But the one thing about the teaching aspect of it, it was fulfilling I always talk about is filling my lungs. Like the greatest thing I've ever done is coach Little League sports. I did that about 15 years. And teaching was giving me that same self-worth. Well, then I finished up. Auburn asked me to stay as a visiting professor. That's where I met a young pupil named Benjamin Bush. And even then, I'm going to give him a little bit of flowers right now. He was probably the most polished student. He knew what his life was. He knew who he was going to marry. He knew exactly the path he wanted to go, except he didn't know he wanted to teach. And I told him right then he would teach one day. Sure enough, it came about. I've been teaching over 20 something years, been in design 30 something years. And I have similar philosophies as Ben. I love unscripted education. Everything around me teaches me something. So why not introduce that to the next generations? And truthfully, probably one of the more, things that I've said that even resonates with me is my name will be forgotten. Let's just be honest. In a couple of generations, I'm just going to be the crazy loud bald guy that in some stories. But I want my deeds to carry on because I believe in students actually more than they believe in themselves. And I think that's my teaching philosophy. I'm there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning with them still. And just for them to know that I'm along with them, that's all I need to know.
Fantastic. Both of those, honestly, fairly crazy, but also fairly amazing in themselves. And for me too, I think just bringing in my perspective, I've been teaching now for just over 2 years, and similar story. I was working in the field sort of as an industrial designer, as a graphic designer, doing all sorts of different things, picking up freelance projects and contracts and all of that stuff. And then suddenly I find myself sort of going back to education, trying to learn a little bit more around, digital design and wanting to sort of be a better designer there. But then suddenly I, get this opportunity to teach. One of my professors was just like, do you want to teach? And I was like, I've done that for undergrad and postgrad. I was doing a lot of, smaller teaching positions. So TAs and that sort of thing, teaching at the Writing Center at Auburn for 3 years. And so I knew I always really enjoyed that aspect, but I definitely did not know what all it brought, right? So I think one of the first conversations I had was with Ben and with Owen just around, how do I really get to go from there to now grading and being responsible for the education as well? Because when you're doing those TA and smaller teaching jobs, it's like you're not necessarily responsible for the assignments or for the things that are coming out of class, but suddenly you take on all of that responsibility. And so that's what changed for me, but also I think it made me a better designer in itself. Following sort of what Ben was saying earlier, definitely taking a lot of what I'm still learning at my current positions and then bringing that to class. So It's been a pleasure. I mean, definitely has been something that has been challenging at times, but super interesting and something that teaches me something every day, right? Going to class and looking at people that are coming in from different perspectives and different countries and different backgrounds and bringing in all sorts of different avenues of how they want to, take design and do something with it, I think has been probably super rewarding, as Owen was saying, like filling the lungs and that sort of thing. So I do my full-time gig as a UX designer in IT, and then that of course lends me its skills and the money and helps me pay the bills. But then there's teaching that fills those lungs too. So super exciting stories. Thanks so much for sharing, both of you. Both of you sort of brought this up a little bit around the education starting from a young perspective, and sort of relate that back to gamification in a way. Because I know that, Ben, you'd never really taught me directly, I feel like, at Auburn, but you were making strides in other studios that are around me. And I knew that there was like Nerf fights and things like that going on in studio. Maybe you can share sort of a little bit about that, like what made you make that change within the studio? Because I know the rest of the sort of professors weren't necessarily doing that or bringing that gamification aspect to the classroom. I know Owen's going to share a little bit about this too, but let's start with that.
Yeah. All right. So Owen has a bit part of the story. Like, I was just being myself when I was like adding games, adding Nerf guns, making it, I don't want to say childlike, but like, yeah, I realized that kids are really good at being creative, and somehow we get kind of pushed out of that. You have to sit down, do your standardized test, and according to you do this test, gives you money via scholarship or gives you the job title that you want. And like Owen said, like I just didn't like that methodology. There are more types of smart than one linear type of smart. So trying to just lower the barriers of entry and make everyone feel welcome and comfortable in class. It doesn't work for everyone, but if you see that I'm not willing to take myself that seriously, I have a high standard, but if you can't laugh and have fun and like imagine what things could be, you're not going to make a good designer. You're always going to feel like you have to like at every single point. Perfectionism is going to ruin you. So my gamification is really like, how do I get you in a space where you can try something new and try something and not have to get it right on the first time, or not even get it right the second time, because the standardized testing will do that, but also the world will do that for you. So trying to make sure there is a separation between the fun you and the work you, and then you fold those back in together.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is I walk into rooms and first thing I ask people, like, who's creative? One or two people will raise their hand, right? Because people are scared of that word. But I'm like, how many of y'all were 5 at one time? And everybody looks at me like, you're an idiot. We all been 5. I'm like, okay, then you were born creative. Everybody was creative. The greatest creative minds are around 5 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
Because black magic, dragons, pixie dust still exist, right? And play is the most creative form of creativity. Adults forget it because we put filters on, we put, blinders, and we want efficiency, and we know how the world. No, you don't know how the world works. You've forgotten about how the world works. And so why are we not training the next generations to see the world differently, to be able to go against status quo, to be going, that doesn't work anymore. It's not about how it used to be. This is the way it's got to be. Well, as a professor, and I do this to everybody. You don't have to be in my class, right? I'm going to quiz you. I can't help it. I have a pestering personality, just the way it is. But I want to see how you think, right? And if it's always scripted, then you're just playing to what I think. So in class, I challenge you to be 5. I challenge you to break down a brief into the actions, not the nouns in which we're used to. Because the first rule of my class, even in my syllabus, don't bore me. Right? I've been at this too long. I already know the shapes. But if you're going to bore me, why are you in my class? Yeah. Right? And so, and then from what Ben said, the sage on the stage, I'm just one viewpoint. I just can get to things quicker. That's the only difference. But they're just as creative, just as intelligent. I just have to get it out of them. And then, like Ben said, it's kind of like coaching, right? You got X amount of people on the field. Each one of them has a different motivational button. You got to find those. And you got to do it for every single one of them to get to one goal. And that's the beautiful part about teaching, because it's a puzzle. Every single class, they're trying to figure me out, because I walk into class completely different every single day. But I'm also trying to figure out, how do I make Ben better? How do I make Arjit better? Right? And each one of y'all are going to have those little bit different buttons and switches that I got to play around with, right? Until I figure it out. And now we're off to the races. But I got to get you to believe in it first.
Yeah, one of the pillars of Owen's thing is like he'll poke at you. And if you just take the poke, it gets worse. So the best thing you can do is respond and get into it. And even like the only thing you can really own are your own faults and mistakes. And so he starts letting you depend on that and your perspective and defending your perspective, even if it's wrong. He doesn't care. He just wants to know what's about you. We have a little bit of a different approach. And part of like this getting to know each, it just takes time. There is no shortcut. You can't look at somebody's social media and go, oh, I know how to talk to them. So it's a procedural thing. But what I started doing is, as we're talking about ideas, if they're starting to rely on my ideas too much, I start throwing out bad ideas. And then once they start doing, I'm like, that is dumb. Well, Ben, you gave it to me. Am I always going to be right? No, I take like the Dr. House approach, which means I needed people around me to check me. I'm only one brain and there's 15 other brains. They can always beat me in terms of thinking around from different perspectives. But if you don't activate it, they're just going to go, hey, they're going to say yes. So it's giving them autonomy really to speak what they feel is true and to go make mistakes and own those things.
Man, I've done that too. And the first thing I'm like, so you believe everything you read on the internet too?
Exactly. I was going to bring that up. It's like ChatGPT or something too, right? Like using AI and relying on that too much. Like literally there's already studies that are coming out that say you're essentially losing brain function because you're relying on ChatGPT so much.
And it's only like 70% correct.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's just like same thing. So maybe we can say that about us as educators too, right? It's just like we're not always going to be correct and sometimes intentionally wrong. Yeah. To then say like, are you going to challenge this or are you just going to take that forward and run with it?
But go back to what both of y'all said. And I 100% agree. I'll just let y'all run with it. You're constantly learning as well, right? The thing about it is the greatest teachers are also the greatest learners, right? I'm still looking for those wise people on rocks and under trees and in wherever I'm going to search, because I don't know what I don't know. The way I go into a place, I want to talk to everyone, because that's the beautiful part about it. I don't know what you already know. I want to learn it. And why would I not do the same thing with my students? I want to learn just as much about them. I want to learn where they come from, why they do this, all of this stuff, because now I want to see if they're lying to me in class through their projects. And you can tell that by the more you're around them. We're going to be talkers.
I was going to say like maybe there's a crash course. Next time you go, I'm going to lead you into it. But I actually want to bring us back a little bit to the topic at hand. And not that we strayed away too far, but I feel like discussing the challenges that you faced sort of making these changes in class, right? So I know that there's always people that do want you to follow those sort of structured approaches. Yes, and you've sort of put stuff on your curriculum that says, just like be different or don't be boring or whatever that might be. How do you navigate that, or how have you navigated that in the past? Either one
right.
Can.
I'll jump on this one, and then Ben can fill it in with probably a lot more intelligent answers. I have now taught 3 generations in the classroom. So as time has changed, different rules and different structures, different approaches have been implemented in higher ed. I struggle with it all the time. When people tell me it's got to be this way, when I'm going to be the first one that says, no, it doesn't. And so even as chair of programs, and, I've even been Ben's boss, not so much, but by title, it was my job to shelter him and the other faculty from what all of the rules above, to allow them to be them, right? If you're not authentic in everything that you do, you're faking it. Mm-hmm. And so why are professors faking it? Because they know there's something better, because of a rule, because of accreditation. And so I don't mind breaking rules. I mean, that's just my gift. But I will encourage and empower other people to do the same, as long as I have the broad shoulders to protect them.
Yeah. Like normally when I get around, when I'm taking one, it's like, that's a good one. I don't disagree with a structured approach. If you have one type of smart, then only one person can be the smartest. Only one person can be the best sketcher. Just understanding that there's multiple ways to be right. And you've got to find within yourself, what do you gravitate towards? But honestly, what do you have to work on? We take this athletics approach where you want to be like, you have something you're naturally good in and you have a direction of where you want to go, and you need to build those skills up, and you got to be yourself, but also like hardworking. So in terms of like us, how do we exist in that structure? I still believe in a lot of prep work. I'm trying to make sure every single curriculum, every single classroom that I'm in, I'm thinking, all right, how do I make this better? How do I make it more relevant? How do I tie in things that they appreciate and they know? And how do I incorporate their knowledge into the classroom? And so it means late nights for us, just trying to make sure this stuff is right. I hate walking to a classroom and not know what I'm talking about, or at least not having like an outline. We kind of have a slightly different philosophy. I think Owen will straight up says, that's dumb. Like he'll headbutt with you. And I take the John McCabe methodology. Like I love a good mutiny. So what I'll do is I'll pick out the rule and go like, what do you mean by this? And I get them to define it. And when I realize like, you're not really behind this either. You don't believe like this one structure is perfectly good, especially in creative major. There's so many ways to be right. And so I'll start like, well, can we agree that this part is dumb? And just start and crumble a foundation by just questioning the integrity of every single pillar you thought was right. Even like the dossier approach, like how do you get tenure? It's not geared for designers. And so all we start doing is like, well, you see that graph they're using there? Why are they using a graph? Oh, they're trying to visualize. Well, the way I visualize is different, right? We're trying to communicate a lot of information really succinctly. Well, here's my table now. So we're just poking, questioning, getting people around us to go, oh yeah, I never thought about it that way. And then when you got a force of the willing. The last one is understanding that it's really nice working at a university where like I'm not the only sage on the stage. I'm not the only guy on the side. There's gonna be different flavors for different people. I was talking to my kids about millimeters and 1/10 of a millimeter. I'm like, listen, kids, if I'm measuring something in terms of accuracy, you get 1/2 mil. That's as accurate as I want to be. But I'm thankful there's a person like Aaron Heisler down in SCAD who will measure you to the thickness of a piece of paper, 0.04, because like that's his level, right? And so like some people gravitate towards that style and some people gravitate towards me. But when you have these multiple influences, you're going to be much more well-rounded. And lastly, like there's going to be a distribution curve. The bell curve, unfortunately, it's really real. And so everyone in your classroom, not going to want it as much. You got a couple up top, go-getters, really excited about the content. Most of them do good, and some of them not really interested as much. So they want to do the bare minimum so they can pass the class because they value something else. So I've learned to respectfully work with that lower third and be like, what can I do to get you there? But it's ultimately like it's up to them to motivate themselves and want to be involved. I'm only going to run as far as they're willing to run. So instead of putting a lot of effort towards that, if they don't want to run with me, hey, I'll jog. This is what you want. I'll give it to you. But really putting effort towards your upper end of the distribution curve and that middle third and bringing them up.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, you got to be honest with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, we all have different.
They don't like that. No,
it doesn't feel good. It never does. But
no. And the thing about it is, a lot of times, I am hard. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that, right? I'm fair. It's all math when it comes to grades. But the point is, they cannot tell me that I'm not putting the effort that they are because I'm there, right? I'm there more than they are, actually. But at midterm, I will have a one-on-one conversation, adult conversation saying, look, I don't see it in you. Now, we'll have a little conversation with it, and I'll tell them why I see that or why I don't see it. And I ask them to prove me wrong if they really want it. But a lot of times, especially students at earlier ages don't know what they want, and they're going through emotion. And we all know design is not that easy. It seems fun because we get to build models, we get to sketch, but to find true questions to answer is one of the hardest things in the world. It's why we're 90% wrong all the time. Right? But to me, education has to have honesty behind it. Or you're just setting people up for failure later on, and then they can't handle it because there's no safety net. There's no anything like that. So the honesty, I think, is the hardest part, especially when you care too much. But it's also the hardest part to hear when you're a student and you think that you should be on top.
Which one hurts worse? Me being honest in the short term to get good outcomes, or being dishonest over a long time and then going, I don't know what you're talking about.
100%.
Yeah, and then you're unemployable.
This is phenomenal. I mean, it's just like, I see the back and forth because like we all have so much to add, and my brain's just been going all sorts of directions when we've been saying all of this stuff. Like I've sort of had reviews where it's just like, he really cares and he wants to push us to, actually get jobs and that sort of thing. But it's also just like literally one of the comments was, Arjit's a hard ass. Like, and it's just like, I get it.
It's a badge of honor, sir. That is a badge of honor.
I know. And it's just like sometimes like I'm mentoring people. Like I do a lot of ADP mentorship and that sort of thing as well. And I've done that. And then one of the comments that I got from that was just like, you're a magician because you got into my head and showed me like where I needed to go, not just for the project, but like for life in general. And like stuff like that, again, fills my bucket to the core. It's absolutely just incredible when something like that happens, right?
I mean,
and
yeah, go ahead. No, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think like to like some of the other discussions that were going on during this time is just like a lot of this motivational learning, motivational, just like internal stuff, like to get to be a better designer or to just come in and say like, I want to do this, like is so hard to capture and build within a class, like all of that. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. It's like a lot of this learning happens outside of class. Right? It's not something I can help you build within yourself. I can be a hard ass and tell you what the right answers are or lead you to them. But if you don't have that intrinsic motivation to get there on your own, like there's only so far I can take you.
Yeah. Okay. So that leads me into what I was going to say. And great. You're doing a great job as emceeing this thing, right? I don't teach you for your first job. That is your first job as a young professional is 100% on you. Did you learn the skills? Did you get enough education? Do you understand the process to go sit next to a real designer and be an asset? That's 100% on you, right? I'm teaching you life skills along with design skills. I'm teaching you how to see through things from a personal point of view, from a professional point of view. I want you to be prepared for who you will be as a young adult in your 30s and 40s. But most of my class is questioning you at the core. And so my job as an educator is making sure you're ready for life 4 to 5 choices down the road.
When you've fallen, when you've, had those tumbles, and it's just like, how do you get back up? Because it comes back to that, like, how do you get up and say like, yeah, I've heard about this before. I've seen this before. Owen told me this, Owen said this was going to happen. I knew that I was going to, not like this first job or be in a situation where I just don't like the product or whatever else that might be. Like we had that discussion as part of the first episode that we were recording too. It's just like, I think this was mentioned earlier too, but you're building up those skills to get to that 20-year-old goal, right? At the end of the day, like you might not like the job that you're doing right now, but if it's providing those skills, it's providing those assets in a way that are building up to something that you want to do in the future. Like, and that might change, that might move, but it's the place to be. So I really appreciate that. I feel like all of us are doing that in our own ways. And I've learned so much from you both. And I don't know, I just can't stop giggling about this stuff. But I don't know if you want to take anything.
But look at the screen right now. There's 3 generations of educators, and we've all crossed the same crossroads, right? We've walked some similar paths because we've all worked together, right? Ben is still one of my favorite students, and his class is one of my favorite classes. I don't hide that. I tell my students today, there's certain classes that will forever be part of me because of the work they put in, right? Ben's class was stellar. I expect Ben and his classmates to be greater than me because I gave them everything I had that I didn't start with, right? And I know Ben wants Arjit to be greater, maybe. Ben still likes being the GOAT, but greater than he was because he poured his energy into your education. Maybe not directly, but indirectly.
100%. 100%.
Right. And so that's the beautiful part about when I look at this screen as the old guy with a lot of gray is it is improving. Ben is a better professor than I am. Arjit, you think way beyond what I can think. Right. And that's the ultimate compliment. For me, sitting back, knowing I'm closer to the finish line than I am the starting point, I hope the world's better because of certain things that I did, right? And it's not because I made this earth-shattering product. I've had those things on the shelves, but that doesn't live long. It's watching Ben mold the next generation in his own form, right? Seeing you start up and being part of this young design circle and we having these chats, that's the ultimate goal. I mean, wisdom is our ultimate achievement. And it's not for us to hold on to, it's for us to share.
Yeah, we're not just building products, we're building people, right? The next generation.
I mean, again, everybody says, let's make a better world for people. I refuse to say that anymore because every time we build a better world, we screw it up.
100%.
I want to make better people for the world.
So true. Ben, I know you're
You're
ready to say something.
I'm going to jump on, right? So to Owen's fact or Owen's statement about his name is irrelevant, like you're like, no, Owen, you're really important to me. And then like the more you kind of sit on that and think about it, like there's a lot of wisdom to it. Like for all of us, Owen might know this, but like Arjit, where did your great grandfather work for the majority of his life?
I have no clue.
How did he do? Was he okay an employee? Was he like a groundbreaker? Was he a hard ass? We don't know. And that's like in your lineage. Right. So it's like what? Two jumps up.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we're doing right now in terms of like my name being important will be gone in 3 generations, no matter what I do. Like there's only so many like Albert Einsteins out there. So it's the skills that we pass on, the wisdom that we pass on that's really important. I have a couple of people who are like, hey, what's your most famous student doing? I'm like, well, let me put this on too. Are we talking about like successful? Like let's define success. Right. We are looking at like what makes you come alive, what allows you to do great things with your life. How do you communicate? How do you treat the people around you? That's a beautiful outcome because you can be a great designer and be a terrible person. So, there's no clout on that. And I mean, Owen's right. I want the next generation of educators to be better than me. So I got you're making Owen and John great granddad educators. So I've got you and I've got another student who just started at UL Lafayette, Damian Mitchell, incredible designers, really thoughtful teachers. And it's the point I'm learning from y'all now. And so like we started a more formal mentorship thing because I realized I'm really good at teaching, but if students like, I really want to get into UX UI, well, like, that's not my core competency. I know the fundamentals, but let's put you up with Erin Morris Jenkins because she's doing it right now. And that way you learn from her and then you come back and tell me what I need to know and implement in my class. That's so much more wise than me going, I've got to know everything. I've got to have all the right answers. You become wise by not association, but like reaching out to your community and going, congratulations. I was the teacher. Now you're the teacher. I'm a cheerleader of you. Tell me what I need to know to be better. It's a pretty cool place to be in.
Yeah, wait till your hard drive gets to my age. Mine was issued in the 70s, buddy. Mine is tapped out.
Yeah, I think it's just like being that catalyst, right? Sometimes you don't have the answers, but you have the people that have the answers, and just being able to know that sometimes is so important. Like the first time I taught like a service lens class, like I was just trying to bring in people that had that within their core skill set, or that's what they did every day. And I brought in like, Callie to come in and talk about service blueprints. And that was something that I learned from. And then I was like, okay, like next year I can do this, right? And there's a different skill that I might say like I might not have, but I can bring somebody in that can help me learn that a little bit better and then push that forward. So I implemented that at my company. I'm doing that in class now. And so it's just like so important to be able to just say that I don't know and I'm okay with that, but I know somebody that does, right? Because a lot of people don't or are not able to do that. They're just like, I need to know everything. And I feel like that sometimes, but it's just like a lot of times it's just about saying like, I don't know and I don't think I need to know, because there's somebody that can do it better than me. So,
but isn't that called great leadership too? Elevate the people around you that know more or 100%. Can accomplish more.
100%. Amazing. Okay. All right. I want to move a little bit. Like I have 2 more topics that I want to discuss, and I don't want to take all day because I know we can be here all day. The 3 of us can talk all like, there's so much to cover. But what do you think the future of this is, right? What makes a successful design educator when they're young, right? I do this for myself, but I also do this for people that are trying to get into management, let's say, right? That are young designers now, but in the next 5-10 years, perhaps might be into management. Where do you see that going?
I'll let y'all start because I'm not even young. So
you're the one who's learning as much as they can, reaching out, humbling yourself, and like, I don't know everything. And so I'm relying on other people's experiences and knowledge. It's a lot. Being willing to be a sponge, I think, is really important as a young, and like, you have to have an amazing amount of integrity. Give your flowers where there's opportunities. The only thing you own is your mistakes. So anything that's positive, they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Well, I appreciate you. The best thing I did was like, I went to that person. So make sure you're giving your flowers where it's appropriate, is to understand, like, I'm not the 23-year-old designer that I was. And there's pros and cons to that. I've learned that there's so much more students' experiences and things that I've gotten wrong that I can say, hey, let me speak from a experiential standpoint of doing or not doing because I've been through it. So what I've gained in experience, I might have to work harder now on those, getting a personal connection with the student, really understanding who they are. That's one of the reasons why I love study abroad, because you get really intense short time with people. And it's not just about learning in your classroom, which is good, but it's about learning beyond the classroom, and everything kind of folds into everything. That's something that I saw Owen model really great in my class was, yes, we're learning in the classroom, but we're also going to get out and apply it in a way that, I guess, honor college might do it, but it just becomes normal. It's like we're taking field trips so we can know how these things in classrooms apply to things outside in the world. Because if you can't make the connection, you're just a theorist, or you're a designer who really likes writing papers. And I don't like writing papers.
Okay, so I'm further removed from that 23-year-old designer, but I think I have the same mentality. Like, I will never grow up. I am the most immature 51-year-old you'll ever meet. But I respect the old ways of doing things. And I think that's where sometimes I have a disconnect, because put your phone down, put the screen away. Life's out here, not behind the screen all the time, as I'm talking into a screen. But I think you've got to find that balance. And what Ben said is you've also got to relate, right? My jokes don't hit home as well as they used to because no one knows what an 8-track is. Like, you can't even get close to it now. But I also need to understand that their platforms are what I need to teach from. Mm-hmm. You have to connect with your audience because it's only one of me, and students will stay the same age every single year, right? And so, like Ben said, you have to work harder as you get older because it's not as natural to you. Parts of just how you think is more natural because you've seen it. You have these stories. I have travels. I have all those things that make my class interesting. But if I'm not connecting with them on, like, meeting them where they're at, I'm lost. I even had a faculty at another university. We were talking. She said, my students only want to play on TikTok. Why don't you have something on TikTok then? And she goes, why would I do that? I'm like, do you want to relate to them, or do you not want them to be anywhere close to being interested? You have to find those things, but you also teach them. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You build the sandbox, right? There's always criteria to everything in this world, but make it malleable and allow them to have their tools inside that sandbox to surprise you with their greatness. And that's what I strive for every day. I want to be delighted to listen to them in their own way. And that's why when they present, I will not let them just sit there in front of the class on the. No, you tell me where you want to present. Put it in context. You own your presentations because you are the designer. You create my experience. That's why it can never be in a classroom. The classroom is only a finishing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Your education is outside, right? I mean, people all the time going, well, you went to college. Yeah, I did. Okay, I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. But I learned 10 times more sitting on that farm trying to figure out things from common sense point of view. You got to find that mixture. And as educators, and especially because of designers, we think differently anyway. How are you blending that? And it's on the professor to make sure that you're not missing and having gaps in that learning curve.
Right. Such an interesting topic that I feel like leads me to this thought about like competence and like not necessarily always feeling like you have those connections or those answers, you know, especially when they're talking about something that they're passionate about or they're bringing you into their environment, right? And you're just being like, I'm here to really experience this, and then I can tell you how I feel about that. And I can perhaps guide you into other things that I might have seen, but they don't necessarily relate exactly to your project, perhaps, right? Somebody like once said to me, it's just like, you technically only have to be a week ahead of the students, right? To be teaching them. Of course, that changes over the years because you've built up on all of these connections that we're talking about here. But I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on that. Like, how do you really think about that perspective of, I am competent enough to know that I'm allowing you to do this and it's going to lead us to the right results? Because it might not really do that. Thoughts?
Yeah, like we're in a boat. We're in a small boat together. But the waters are always going to be murky. It'd be really nice if I can go, I see the goal. I see every single step that's going to lead us there. Something that I've integrated instead of saying, hey, let me lay the structure. And it's my job as the leader. It's my job to lay structure. But if it's just that, they start being reliant on me to run their design process. And like, they're going to leave. And then I got a bunch of new students who don't know that thing. I can't be teaching them all again. So what I've started doing is, all right, this is where we're starting. We're doing some basic research. Tell me the stuff that we don't know. And if you miss it, none of us is going to know. So make sure you understand and explain your corner of the research market. That way we are equally informed. And the second part of that is I have this Miro chart about all the next step. I got like, we'll say like really big categories, really big buckets, research, development, finishing. And so when we get like between stages, I'm like, hey, I know y'all took methods with Verena. I know y'all are probably the most well-educated students. What should we do next? And to make sure like it doesn't seem like I'm lazy, I'll write the thing out and I'll keep it covered with kind of a password locked image around it. And I'll move it. Hey, this is the plan. All right, I've written a plan. This is what I think we should do next. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? And this is the thing about like ChatGPT doesn't do is, sure, use it. But I want you to tell me what ChatGPT missed. So I use the same philosophy. I'm like, Dr. House, what should we do next? Let me hear you out. I'm willing to change my thing if you're willing to change yours. So crowdsourcing, having a plan, but also being willing to change the plan to engage the students better.
Adaptation.
Yeah. And I think as you get older and you've been exposed to more, you get more confidence, right? I'm confident knowing I'm not the smartest person in the room. And I'm okay with that. I'm the loudest, never the smartest, right? But just like Ben said, I'm going to let you make your own choices with me sprinkling in. And for those who have ever had me in class, you know I never give a straight answer. It's always riddles. Mm-hmm. I'm going to answer a question with another question. I'm going to send you down multiple paths and let you figure out which one it is. Can't help myself, right? But what that's doing is giving you confidence later on, right? You have confidence, sometimes cockiness, that it gets brought down really quick. And then you have the imposter syndrome, right? Everybody's scared to death to being an imposter. If you don't know, just admit you don't know. The world's not going to come crushing down on you, right? And again, going back to my days of college, I was a horrible student. I tell my students all the time, I was the one skipping class. I was the one that would come to the door, turn around and walk off and go play sand volleyball, right? I've used every excuse in the world. So just be truthful with me because I'm way better at it than you are, right? And so as long as you are truthful going, oh, I have no idea what we're talking about. Cool. Let's reframe it. Let's redefine what we're talking about, right? And then a thing that I adopted from a dean of mine is called a pilot. Put them on the computer. As we're talking, they're pulling things up from that, video, stuff like that. And I will pivot and go on a rabbit hole instantly, right? That's the way I am. I'm just like, ooh, something shiny. Mm-hmm. But what they're doing, they're building their skill sets and bringing it up in things I can't do. I'm not going to sit there on the computer and be able to attach stuff, right? And you got other people over here doing the same thing, slinging it. So confidence comes from a lot of failures. Confidence comes from you putting yourself in situation to learn from that situation, right? Imposter syndrome means you've been in the background. You're scared to death to be who you are. And that is nowhere for anyone to be, right? So I help work with youth groups. And somehow I'm always attached to like young female design camps. And my first lesson, because they're usually around 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in 5th grade. At that stage, you see a lot of, I'm playing to the crowd because I don't know who I am, right? So my lecture, usually around a campfire, because that's where I like to do it, is how many faces do you have? And this goes for design because I use it in the design room. You got one for your friends, one for your social media, one for your parents, one for your close network, one for the public, right? And that's just a few. But no one ever labels the one that's in the mirror. Until you can own that person that's in the mirror, you're going to live a fake life. Now let's go to design. As long as you're trying to play for what you think someone else needs to see, you're never going to accomplish the greatness inside of you because you don't even know who you are. So that confidence, and that's why I'm sometimes brutally honest. I'm constantly putting you into harm's way because you're going to have to fail some, which I don't see as a bad thing, but a lot of people, failure is a bad thing. But I'm building calluses. Yep. I'm showing you things. I'm building that database for you to be confident whenever you walk into the room, right? Because you're not going to be the smartest one. You're not even going to have the skill sets that can match and rival some of the professionals. But when you sit at that table, make sure your voice has merit. You have something to add. So what you're doing, you're making sure you belong there, not just included.
Absolutely amazing. So here's the thing, like I when I asked that question, it came from a section of confidence, competence, and imposter syndrome. And I feel like you covered all of them all together because that was like sort of the idea that I had around it too. But I think there's one thing that perhaps like you mentioned, but I want to touch on a little bit more, is like when somebody does talk about something that they are passionate about, the feeling that you have when you're just like, yes, I'm adding to your passion and your fire. I'm helping build a bigger fire. And I can do that only when I'm confident in being able to do that, adds so much to somebody else's project, right? Because they're passionate, they're feeling like you can add something to it when you're asking them a question, not giving them the answers. That's what you really need, right? Because they're coming to you about something that is a problem that they don't necessarily have the answer for. You don't either, but you can ask a question that will lead them to that answer.
Piggyback on that. Confidence comes from them having confidence in you, right? 100%. And the confidence that you have, that you don't know the answer, but you're willing to walk next to them to find that answer.
Right.
That's where a mentor, a guide, a coach, a professor, whatever it is that you're going to be called in whatever terms, that's your obligation to walk next to them, not in front of them, sometimes behind them because you're pushing, right? But when they come to you, they understand that you might not know, but you know how to get there. And that's the true, I guess, belief in a mentor, that I'm not going to get the pat on the back every single time, but they're going to make sure that I'm on the right path.
I don't know, Ben, do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure you do.
And in terms of kind of getting on the same page, one is like having the rapport with the student where they trust you. Quoting my mom here, she's like, no one cares what you know until they know that you care. And like, that's a big part of just our approach to teaching, is making sure that you might not like what I say because it hurts, but it's not coming from a place of anger or hate. It's just, I care a lot about you and I want to make sure you're good. So I'm going to speak honestly to you. Something that's been pretty transformative in my teaching is having access to 3D printers and laser cutters, because like, there's so many times I'm like, well, what happens? I don't know. Hit the print button, do it, and then you will know. Take off the machine. If it breaks, congratulations, we have discovered new knowledge. It's different than like a chemical reaction, but it's the same thing. We can go, all right, I own this. Hey, I'll look at this, and then you can make it better. I'm in a weird spot. I'm doing grant work, and I need to make a squishy elastic gasket that deforms maybe 50%. I was not trained how to do this. So my answer to my students are like, so where do I learn how to do this? I'm like, I'll tell you what I know. Have you Googled it? Go out there, learn what you can, and then just hit the print button, baby. Just once you do it, and then you will know. And if you're not there, you're going to try it again. It's not that complicated, but it does take a certain amount of bravery and trust in me that I'm not throwing you away. Like, we together are making this new knowledge.
I mean, Edison, how many bulbs did he have? Right? They kept feeding him. So had to be pretty good.
Okay, so that actually brings me to my last thing that I want to talk about. Leave the young designers with something that they can take away. I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of takeaways, but who are the most successful design students from your perspective, right? Like, when you're thinking about, everybody's essentially getting the same education, but there's some that will stand out. And I know we've sort of briefly touched on this, like internal curiosity and wanting to be different and all of that stuff, but something that you think is probably the most crucial skill that would define where you go, what would that be?
I'm making my list right now.
All right, I'll give a couple of simple ones, because I judge everyone every single time I meet someone by the same criteria, right? You're going to have different skill sets. You're going to have different things. But the two things that I judge you on is passion and pride. Passion, in which you come into a room or whatever the situation is, knowing that you're going to be better tomorrow than you are today, but you're better than yesterday, right? That is a key to any design student. And then pride in which you do your work. You're giving me your best at that moment, right? So curiosity is the key to all creativity. If you're not curious, you're never going to be creative. You've got to have that hustle in you, right? You got to want that work, because there's too many other people that want it. You're going to get bypassed. And if you got that passion and pride in you, that you are going to be the best person that you can be, you will be successful. Because if you have all of those components, you're going to see it, right? You're going to see a person achieve, as Ben said, success in their own way. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at those criteria, I'm going to ask you to look at the screen that says Benjamin Bush. He had those, right? I saw it in class the first time I taught him. And I laughed at him because I told him I already know what you're going to do, right? But then I'm going to say, with just the small work that I've done with Arjit, you got the same thing, right? I don't have to pull people from my memory and stuff like that. I got two on the screen, because both of you have those characteristics. You have an undying thirst of curiosity. You both have passion. You can see it, you can hear it. and you both take pride in everything you do and your outputs, I mean, how could you not say that's success, right? And so to me, those are the main keys. You can do whatever you need to do in life with those.
Love it. So Owen's running on this platform of passion and pride. I don't know if you're taking down notes. I'm like, we're basically saying the same things. I'm just going to repackage mine as humility and hustle. So it all stems from curiosity. I can't make you want to even like get into this major or try hard. So curiosity to find things out. One of the things that I've seen exceptional students do is their willingness to ask the question and realize like all knowledge does not come from me. But the more I can engage with the people around me, the subject matter experts or the people who are on the opposite side, like I really don't like this at all. Well, tell me why you don't like that at all. Leads to like so many interesting outputs. Like when Owen says he loves to talk to people when he's flying over a plane, he wants to talk to them. That's why he is who he is, because he doesn't like find a lot of like, I am the master of knowledge. He's always pulling it from these places you're not going to expect it, which makes designers really funny because there's no database of you need exactly this. You might learn something about UX, UI design from someone who does horticulture. And only a designer is going to find that out because they're willing to say, I'm not the authority on this. Tell me what you're passionate about. And then your job is connect the very atypical dots. To the humility aspect, like I want to see in these students that they're very respectful with their prep time. They're always going to bring you your best. They take pride in their work. Owen comes from a kind of an agricultural background. I had horses and cows in my backyard. I've got a garden. There's a piece of scripture that says, like, man might plant, man might water, but only God makes it grow. It's the same thing about our skills. Like, I can only control how much effort I put into it. And even if I hustle all day long, I can't guarantee that it grows. I'm asking to be blessed in that capacity, but it's also my job to show up and give effort. So when I see that from students, even if they don't have it yet, I'm like, oh, that's just not an element. That is the element that gets you at everything else. So Owen throws the passion and pride, and I'm going to say humility and hustle are a good complement to that.
And I will also add to the humility part, the students that are willing to help other students rise are the ones that will do it for themselves as well.
Yeah. When you teach, you learn twice.
It's exactly true.
100%. I agree with everything you've said. And I think, just bringing it back to this thing about like being okay, being wrong, being okay saying, I don't know, being okay saying, let's learn together, being okay sort of, pulling from all sorts of different directions and being proud of that and just saying, it's okay that I don't know. And it's okay that we're learning together. And it's okay that we might fail, but we're going to do it. We're going to get it done. However, one way or the other can only happen through passion, pride, and humility, right? 100%. So thank you both so much for being on this show with us. It's been incredible. Again, I could talk to you all forever, but I've received 60-minute check marks. I feel like we were going for 35-minute marks, and I was like, that's not going to happen from the very start, but it's been a pleasure talking to you both. Once again, thank you so much for spending the time. And I'm sure there's so many takeaways that everybody's going to get out of this. It's been a pleasure, Owen and Ben. Don't know if there's any last words. I'm sure we've talked enough. So I'll let you say any last words if there are any. But otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on.
Yes, thank you so much for making this thing happen. And just being like awesome what you do, because like we like to talk, but we need somebody to talk to. So I appreciate you opening the avenue to, I don't know, talk about some experiences, because otherwise, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm blessed to be on this screen with two people that I admire the most.
Means a lot. Thank you all so much.
Next in Line Design is a podcast for designers by young designers. We hope that you really enjoyed today's episode. We've got some really exciting conversations coming up that we can't wait to share with you. Every episode, you're going to have the chance to meet a new member of the YDC. So enjoy our rotating cast of designers and feel free to reach out in the comments just to say hey, maybe to share some feedback, your story, or tell us more about the kind of conversations that you'd like to be hearing. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the WDO's channels and hit that notification bell so that you never miss an episode. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you back here soon with more of Next in Line Design.